Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Islamic Audiobooks collection. I will be reading When the Moon Split by Safiur R Mubarakpuri, which we downloaded from kalamullah.com. Let's read.
Page 98. The Makkans had already asked Abu Talib to hand over Muhammad, peace be upon him, so that they could kill him, a demand he had refused. Despite his seeming unconcern at their threats, he was secretly afraid, and with good reason, that the Quraysh were plotting to assassinate the Prophet, peace be upon him. Abu Talib acted fast and called on the members of Banu Hashim and Banu al-Muttalib to meet at the Kaaba. He convinced them to pledge that they would protect their clansman Muhammad, peace be upon him. But Abu Lahab, another of the Prophet, peace be upon him's uncles and self-proclaimed sworn enemy, refused to take the pledge. He declared he was on the side of the Quraysh. The polytheists would not be outsmarted. They held a meeting at Hanif Banu Kinana to decide how best to counter Abu Talib's successful maneuver. Eventually, they came up with the idea of a total social boycott. Thenceforth, the members of Banu Hashim and Banu al-Muttalib were to be treated as outcasts. The other clans from the Quraysh would not marry their daughters, transact business with them, keep company with them, nor would they accept any peace overtures from these two clans, until they handed over the Prophet, peace be upon him. Once all the people present had agreed with the points mentioned above, Baghdad bin Amir bin Hashim put this pact in writing, and the parchment was hung in the Kaaba. When the deed was done, Baghdad's hand, or at least some of his fingers, were paralysed. The boycott proved devastating. The Muslims, as well as all the members of Banu Hashim and Banu al-Muttalib, the Muslims as well as the non-Muslims, with the exception of Abu Lahab, were forced to withdraw from Makkah and live in Sha'ab Abi Talib. Unable to buy food from the Makkans, they found themselves reduced to eating leaves and roots. The situation became so horrific that the cries of starving women and children echoed over the valley. Few sympathizers dared smuggle them any food for fear of punishment. Hakim bin Hazam, however, managed now and then to send some flour to his aunt, Khadija, may Allah be pleased with her. Many caravans carrying food and other goods passed by the mountain pass where the Muslims and the exiled clans lived. The refugees, however, could only come out to meet the caravans to buy food during the forbidden months, those months when the fighting was prohibited. The Makkans, however, used to offer much higher prices to the caravan merchants for their goods so that the refugees could not compete with them. Despite grim circumstances, the Prophet, peace be upon him, never ceased inviting non-Muslims to Islam. He, peace be upon him, was particularly active during the time of Hajj. It was at this time that he would speak to tribes that had travelled to Makkah from all over the Arab world. 3 years of near starvation and hardship took Banu Hashim and Banu al-Muttalib to the edge of despair. Meanwhile, Allah was softening the hearts of the Quraysh through the 5 Ashraf, nobles, who were the only people to give a thought to the refugees' plights. The first of these 5 was Hisham bin Amr bin Harith, a highly respected nobleman of the Quraysh. When he reflected on the suffering of the exiles, he was deeply saddened. They were kinsmen, and the Quraysh had done the unthinkable by breaking off all ties with them. While the families in Makkah thrived, the refugees were dying of starvation one by one. In the 3 years since the enforcement of the boycott, no one seemed interested in its withdrawal. Finally, Hisham decided to talk to 4 other high-ranking members of the Quraysh and convince them to end this injustice. Hisham first spoke with Zuhair bin Abd Abi Umayyah Makhzumi, the Prophet, peace be upon him's cousin, and Mut'im bin Aday and Abul Bukhtari bin Hashim, and finally to Zam'a bin Aswad. He appealed to their sense of kinship and reproached them for allowing the tyranny to continue. When they heard his plea, they all agreed with him that the parchment hanging in the Kaaba should be torn to pieces. The next morning, the 4 men waited for other members of the Quraysh to assemble around the Kaaba. Zuhair finished circumambulating the Kaaba and then stood before the people. "O people of Makkah," he began, Shall we eat and drink while Banu Hashim die of hunger, unable even to buy or sell? By God, I will not rest until this cruel and unjust decree is torn to pieces. Abu Jahl was furious. You are wrong. By God, it will not be torn. Zam'a countered. By God, it is you who are wrong. When was it written? We were not in agreement. Zam'a is right, Abul Bukhtari said. We did not agree to what was written in that decree, nor do we lend our support to it. Now it was Mut'im bin Aday's turn. Both of you are right. There is no sin in opposing the decree. We seek our acquittal from God regarding the document and whatever it contains. Hisham bin Amr expressed his agreement with Mut'im. The sudden rebellion made Abu Jahl suspicious. This looks prearranged. Your sudden concern has its seeds somewhere else, he protested. At this point, Abu Talib saw his opportunity to step in. He came into the precincts of the Kaaba to tell the Quraysh that the Prophet, peace be upon him, had received a revelation about the fate of the iniquitous parchment. He stood up and, facing the Quraysh, he told them that Allah had revealed to the Prophet, peace be upon him, that termites had eaten the parchment inside the Kaaba. The only thing that remained of the document, Abu Talib said, were the words, "In your name, O Allah." Abu Talib then challenged the Quraysh, saying, if the Prophet, peace be upon him's claim turned out to be false, he would no longer stand between them and the Prophet, peace be upon him. However, if the Prophet, peace be upon him, had spoken the truth, the Quraysh should end the boycott. The Quraysh accepted Abu Talib's challenge. When Mut'im Aday rose to retrieve the parchment, the assembly saw that it had been destroyed. Its only remaining words were, Bismika Allahumma, in your name, O Allah, and Allah's name. Allah had given the Quraysh yet another sign, but once again they refused to admit their error and accept Islam. Their only concession was to end the boycott. The Prophet, peace be upon him, and his companions came out of the mountain pass and were allowed to live in Makkah once again. A few months after the boycott ended, Abu Talib felt ill. He was over 80 years old, and the Quraysh did not expect him to recover. While this appeared to be good news for the Meccan pagans, the Quraysh felt that it made the situation even more complicated. How would it look to the other tribes in the peninsula, they asked themselves, if we punished Muhammad, peace be upon him, after his uncle died? It would be more prudent, they decided, if they approached Abu Talib with a proposal. Ask your nephew to keep silent about our gods, and we'll hold our peace about his religion. Abu Talib, knowing that he would not live much longer, was certainly interested in finding some way to ensure his nephew's, peace be upon him's, safety after his death. He heard the proposal from the Quraysh and called his beloved nephew to his bedside. The Prophet, peace be upon him, listened and then turned to Abu Talib. Uncle, he, peace be upon him, said, I ask them only one thing, and if they accept this one thing, the whole of Arabia will be under their control, and the non-Arabs will pay them tribute. Only one thing? The Quraysh asked. We are prepared to accept 10 such things. What is it? La ilaha illallah, said the Prophet, peace be upon him. There is no deity except the one God, Allah. What? The Quraysh exclaimed, marvelling at this statement. He has fashioned only one God out of all of them. This is very strange. Abu Talib's illness worsened, and as the hour of his death drew near, the Prophet, peace be upon him, went to his side. He found Abu Jahl and Abdullah bin Abi Umayyah sitting beside his dying uncle. Undeterred by their presence, the Prophet, peace be upon him, urged Abu Talib to make the declaration of faith. La ilaha illallah. My uncle, say La ilaha illallah. This is a simple phrase, and if you say it, I'll plead with Allah for your salvation. The two pagans, however, refused to sit in silence. Abu Talib, they cried, will you shun the religion of Abdul Muttalib? They continued talking to the dying man until the last words that were heard from Abu Talib were, on the religion of Abdul Muttalib. Still, the Prophet, peace be upon him, refused to give up on his uncle. I will ask Allah to forgive you until I am forbidden to do so. Soon after that, however, the following verse was revealed. It is not fitting for the Prophet and the believers that they should pray for forgiveness for pagans, even if they are kin, after it is clear to them that they are companions of the fire. Qur'an 9:113. Another verse was also revealed. It is not for you to guide whomever you like, but it is for Allah who guides whom He wishes. And Allah knows those who are guided. Qur'an 28:56. Abu Talib died in the month of either Rajab or Ramadan, 10 years after the Prophet, peace be upon him, began his mission. Although he had supported the Prophet, peace be upon him, and protected him from his enemies, he died clinging to the faith of his forefathers. Abbas, may Allah be pleased with him, one of the Prophet, peace be upon him's uncles, once asked the Prophet, peace be upon him, "How could you be of any service to Abu Talib, the one who supported you and rebuked others for your sake?" The Prophet, peace be upon him, said, "He is lying in a shallow part of hell. Had I not been there, he would have been sent to a deep ditch in hell." 2 months and 3 days after the death of Abu Talib, the Prophet, peace be upon him's wife, Khadija, may Allah be pleased with her, passed away. She was the Prophet, peace be upon him's trusted advisor and loyal companion, and was known by the title Mother of the Believers. The Prophet, peace be upon him, once said of Khadija, may Allah be pleased with her, "When no one believed me, she believed in me. When people accused me of lying, she affirmed my truthfulness. And when people tried to impoverish me, she made me a partner in her wealth. Allah gave me children through her, and none through my other wives." Once Khadija, may Allah be pleased with her, came bearing food for the Prophet, peace be upon him, who was in the midst of receiving a revelation from Jibreel, peace be upon him. The angel said, "O Prophet, here is Khadija coming to you with a vessel. Give her greetings from your Lord, and give her glad tidings of a palace of pearls in paradise, in which there are only peace and repose." Long after her death, and despite subsequent remarriages, the Prophet, peace be upon him, would only mention Khadija, may Allah be pleased with her, and pray for Allah's mercy on her soul. Thinking of her, he, peace be upon him, would begin to weep. Whenever he, peace be upon him, slaughtered a lamb, he, peace be upon him, would send her friends a portion of the meat. After the deaths of Abu Talib and Khadija, may Allah be pleased with her, the Meccan pagans became bold and would insult and ridicule the Prophet, peace be upon him, in public. Now that the Prophet, peace be upon him, had lost his 2 greatest supporters, small acts of unkindness stung him, peace be upon him, more than ever as he grieved over his bereavement. Once a man from the Quraysh threw dust on the Prophet, peace be upon him's head. One of the Prophet, peace be upon him's daughters, washed away the dirt, weeping bitterly at her father's suffering. Trying to console her, the Prophet, peace be upon him, said, "Dear daughter, do not cry, for Allah will protect your father." Later he, peace be upon him, admitted that it was only after Abu Talib's death that the insults of the Quraysh began to prick him. After 1 month after the death of Khadija, may Allah be pleased with her, the Prophet, peace be upon him, married Sauda bin Sama in the month of Shawwal. Sauda, may Allah be pleased with her, had previously been married to her cousin, Sakran bin Amr, may Allah be pleased with him. The couple had been among the early Muslims who had migrated to Abyssinia. After the return to Makkah, Sauda's husband died. At the end of her period of mourning, the Prophet, peace be upon him, married her. A year later, the Prophet, peace be upon him, married Aisha, may Allah be pleased with her, in the month of Shawwal. This marriage was also solemnized in Makkah. At the time, Aisha, may Allah be pleased with her, was only 6 years old. However, she was sent as a bride to the Prophet, peace be upon him, when she was 9. She, may Allah be pleased with her, was the most beloved wife of the Prophet, peace be upon him, and the greatest female scholar of Islam. The relationship between the Prophet, peace be upon him, and her has given Muslims an insight into the Prophet, peace be upon him's role as a husband, and the deep love he, peace be upon him, inspired in her. The camaraderie between them, the painful episode of the slander against Aisha, may Allah be pleased with her, and the confidences he, peace be upon him, divulged to her, all give us insights into their rich, complex, and profound relationship. Soon, the Prophet, peace be upon him, felt that it was time to take the message of Islam to neighbouring tribes. He made his way on foot to Taif, about 30 miles east of Makkah, travelling with his former slave, Zayd bin Harith, may Allah be pleased with him. Along the way to Taif, the Prophet, peace be upon him, invited each tribe he encountered to embrace Islam. Finally, he reached Taif and met 3 brothers, all chieftains of the Thaqif tribe. He, peace be upon him, invited them to Islam and asked them to help him spread his message, but they responded with hostility. The Prophet, peace be upon him, left the chieftains and looked for others to talk with about Islam. For the next few days, he continued his search to find anyone who would open his heart to Allah's word, but no one was interested. Each chieftain he met proved arrogant and unfriendly when he explained his mission and requested help. Instead of accepting his call to Islam, they asked him to leave Taif and return from whence he came. They even stirred up children, slaves, and the rabble against him. As the Prophet, peace be upon him, made his way out of the township, a ragtag band ran after him, abusing him and throwing stones at him until his feet dripped blood. Zayd, may Allah be pleased with him, tried to protect the Prophet, peace be upon him, from their blows, and in doing so suffered several cuts on his head. The Prophet, peace be upon him, and Zayd, may Allah be pleased with him, escaped and sought refuge 3 miles in an orchard belonging to Utbah and Sheba, the sons of Rabi'ah. There the Prophet, peace be upon him, sat down in the shade of a wall covered with grapevines and prayed aloud to Allah in a supplication known as Dua al-Mustad'afin, the prayer of the oppressed. O Allah, I complain to you of my weakness and humiliation before the people. You are the most merciful, the Lord of the weak, and my Lord too. To whom have you entrusted me? To one who does not care for me? Or have you appointed my enemy as master of my affairs? So long as you are not angry with me, I care not. Your favour is abundant for me. I seek refuge in the light of your face, by which all darkness is dispelled, and every affair of this world and the next is set right, lest your anger or your displeasure descend upon me. I desire your pleasure and satisfaction. There is no power and no might except in you. The sons of Rabi'ah, who saw the Prophet, peace be upon him, taking refuge in their orchard, were moved by the sight of a weary traveller with a long road ahead of him, and sent their slave Adas to him with a bunch of grapes. The Prophet, peace be upon him, took the grapes, and only after saying Bismillah, in the name of Allah, did he begin to eat. Adas was surprised to hear the Prophet, peace be upon him, invoke Allah's name before eating. The people around this area never utter such phrases, he told the Prophet, peace be upon him. The Prophet, peace be upon him, asked Adas, Where are you from, and what is your religion? I am a Christian and belong to Nineveh, replied Adas. Are you from the village of the pious man Yunus bin Mati? The Prophet, peace be upon him, asked him. How do you know of him? Adas asked. He is my brother, the Prophet, peace be upon him, responded. He was a prophet, and so am I. The Prophet, peace be upon him, then recited some verses from the Qur'an, referring to the Prophet Yunus, peace be upon him. Adas was so impressed that he accepted the Prophet, peace be upon him's call to Islam. The Prophet, peace be upon him, resumed his journey back to Mecca, and dejection set in. Haqqan al-Manazil, a cloud bearing the angel Jibreel, peace be upon him, appeared before the Prophet, peace be upon him. With him was another angel. Allah has sent to you the angel of the mountains, Jibreel, peace be upon him, said. He is at your command. The angel of the mountains said, O Muhammad, peace be upon him, I am here to do as you say. The choice is yours. I can crush the people of Taif between 2 hills, if that is your wish. The Prophet, peace be upon him, however, was not looking for revenge. No, I hope Allah will bring forth from their loins people who will worship Allah alone without associating any partners with him. Jibreel, peace be upon him's visit, lifted the Prophet, peace be upon him's spirit. He no longer felt forsaken, and a heavy weight was removed from his heart. He continued his journey, and after some time he halted at Nakhla. It was at Nakhla that a strange event occurred. Even the Prophet, peace be upon him, did not know of it until it was revealed in the Qur'an.
Jazakallah khair for listening.